Going on, everybody? John Matrix here with another Warhammer 40k video for you guys. Excuse me here and fix my mic. Anyway, so we've looked at Terminator armor and its evolution. We've looked at power armor and its evolution. So now we're going to look at dreadnought armor, which I don't really know much about dreadnought armor at all. I think dreadnought armor, they're like smaller kind of mech armors almost. I believe the when you get put in a dreadnought armor, it's a situation where like a space marine or some kind of warrior, and if you're a guardsman, commander, captain, whoever, their body is severely injured and is no longer able to necessarily function, but their brain, I guess, is still intact and is still capable. So they essentially get like entombed in this armor, like this becomes their body, and they just live that way. And it's, from what I understand, like they're kind of almost in constant states of pain, but you know, these suits are built to keep them alive and to keep them in the fight for the Emperor and the Imperium, I believe anyway, but I guess we will find out as we watch through this video. So as always, down below in the description, there will be a link to this original video without my commentary if you want to watch that. And there will also be a video to Arbiter Ian's channel. I would highly request that you go over to his channel and at least give this video a like and give him a sub if you can, and check out his Patreon. He does a lot of great Warhammer 40k content, and yeah, definitely deserves the love and support. But for now, let's get in to this here video. Boop. Volume is good. Let's go.
Hi gang, dreadnoughts are one of the most distinctive things about the battlefields of Warhammer 40,000. Great hulking suits of armor, each one clad in slabs of ceramite and adamantium and bristling with weapons, and each an honored relic, the final resting place of a heroic warrior. In 40k, dreadnoughts are an ancient technology, repurposed by the Imperium, but that comes at a cost. And it's possible they were never really intended to be around that long. Interesting.
So yeah, kind of already confirms that, yeah, these are kind of when a warrior has been injured to the point where his body no longer functions, I guess, but their brain may still have the ability to function. Instead of losing that experience and their capabilities, they just slap him in the suit to keep them alive and to keep them in the fight. That's what it seems like.
So we've looked into the history of both power armor and Terminator armor in game, and now it's the turn of what might be the oldest armor of all, dreadnought armor. Though it's not always phrased that way, it is a suit of armor of a sort. Often confused for robots or other automata, dreadnoughts are huge fighting machines standing 2 to 3 times the height of a man, pushed forward by articulated limbs and powerful fiber bundles, bristling with weaponry, and piloted by a venerable hero, a warrior with centuries of experience of battle. The technology used in their construction has a lot of similarities to other technologies like power armor or Terminator armor, but dreadnought technology is much older, and depending on how you look at it, it's either much more sophisticated or much cruder, since dreadnought suits take a much higher toll on their wearer. Dreadnoughts were a product of the dark age of technology, that mythical period in the 20-something millenniums where humanity was at its technological peak, but the secrets of their construction were maintained throughout the following age of strife on both Mars and on Terra. When the Emperor fought his unification wars in the late 30th millennium, clanking proto-dreadnoughts were used by many of the factions, piloted then by regular human soldiers, but while they were a powerful force multiplier on the battlefield, there were downsides. Like all powered armor, the suits required a connection to the wearer's senses and nervous system, but
I mean, I would also bet that just in general, during that like unification wars era where, you know, humanity was still scattered and wasn't unified yet, and the Emperor was just stepping out into the light and yada yada, that like maintaining and utilizing these things would probably be very difficult, right? Because like resources are short. Like, what do these things run off of? You know what I mean? Like, they would have to have some kind of sophisticated power source to maintain and run, and not just to mention just normal maintenance to keep these things running. I would just think they'd be very difficult to field and maintain properly during that time period. So I find that interesting that they were utilized even back then. And even before necessarily power armor and whatnot was being used by the Thunder Legions and you know, etc.
The suits required a connection to the wearer's senses and nervous system, but the integration required by a dreadnought was much more invasive.
Yeah, it's like permanent.
Crouching in a fetal position, suspended in amniotic jelly, and fed information from the suit's sensors via a direct spinal link. And that link was difficult to break. Once accustomed to the suit's senses, removal and readapting to normal life was difficult, often...
Wouldn't you think, I mean, obviously, as time goes by and their finding of technologies or advancing of technologies, like as Terminator and power armor suits advanced, that their ability to integrate them into the dreadnoughts in a non-permanent way would also advance. But, you know, I don't know. Because, you know, he's saying that these were fielded even, like I said, during unification wars or beforehand. So they would have been around even before the heresy and before the Crusade started. So you would think over time, the technology to integrate people into these dreadnought suits without it necessarily being a permanent fixture would be a necessity as well.
Causes removal and readapting to normal life was difficult, often causing severe mental damage, and this damage only became worse as the suits themselves got larger and more sophisticated and took a heavier and heavier toll on the wearer. Because
kind of sounds like I wonder if whatchamacallit, what's it called? What am I thinking of? Pacific Rim. I wonder if Pacific Rim took some of its lore from 40k then. If this has been established for a long time in the 40k universe, I wonder if Pacific Rim took the idea that Jaeger pilots, you know, the mental load to pilot one of those giant, you know, mechs would be so great that it needs to be, you know, shared, you know, between two or multiple people. So I wonder if that's where I think it's Guillermo del Toro. I think he's the one that created Pacific Rim. I wonder if that's where he got the idea for that kind of lore in Pacific Rim. I find that kind of interesting that, yeah, just I wonder if it's just how alien, like, the sensor integration would be in the human brain, and like over time, obviously you would adapt and get used to those sensory inputs from the machine instead of using your own natural senses. And then if you were to be taken out of that, you would have to readjust, and that would, like, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
More sophisticated and took a heavier and heavier toll on the wearer. Because of this, as the Imperium grew, the use of dreadnoughts became confined to augmented warriors whose bodies and minds could better deal with the stress of piloting them.
Makes sense.
Either the Space Marines of the Legiones Astartes or the warriors of the Legio Custodes, and the practice became to never remove the occupier after their installation. Over time, this meant that internment inside a dreadnought chassis became a form of second life for grievously injured warriors. Soldiers whose bodies had suffered fatal injuries, but whose minds were still intact, could be permanently installed into a dreadnought frame.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, that is just confirming what I thought. That, yeah, it's essentially when the body is essentially dead and not able to function, but the brain is still capable, you know, instead of losing all that battle experience and capability, they just essentially slap your brain into, you know, one of these suits. It's almost very RoboCop 2-ish, you know, when they were trying to upgrade to a new version of RoboCop, and they had all those various experiments fail, but the one that went was, you know, obviously the bad guy or whatever. And anyway, but yeah, it ended up just integrating the brain into an entire new suit instead of kind of cyber augmenting what was left of a body into a cyborg. Anyway, if you haven't seen RoboCop 2, RoboCop 1 and 2 classic movies, highly recommend watching them. Very much worth it. Love those movies.
Whose minds were still intact could be permanently installed into a dreadnought frame, fighting on as venerable heroes who could continue to serve the Imperium long past the point of death. And it's this that defines dreadnoughts apart from other robotic walkers. At the core of each is a long dead veteran, the chassis as much a form of life support as it is a suit of battle armor. Installation is a painful and involved process.
I bet.
What little remains of the occupant after preparation, often just a torso and some vital organs, installed into a removable sarcophagus that bonds with the dreadnought systems, their brains wired into mind impulse units that allow them to see and hear through the dreadnought's external optics and sensors. The stress on the minds of the occupants is still intense, and so only the most stable, stoic, and determined warriors are considered for internment, and it's common to keep dreadnoughts in stasis or otherwise slumbering whenever they're not required for battle. In that way, despite...
Man, that would be just a shitty existence, dude. I mean, you know, it's for the Emperor and for the Imperium, so I'm sure they'd be happy to serve, but it's like, you're going to be just locked away in this machine for whatever is the rest of your life, and when you're not fighting, you're just powered down, and so, like, do you even dream anymore? You know? What does your mind go through, and what happens when you're in there? You know, I don't know. That just...
Despite the toll on the wearer, slumbering whenever they're not required for battle. In that way, despite the toll on the wearer, dreadnoughts can survive for thousands of years, roused at times of extreme necessity. But of course, by the 41st millennium, dreadnoughts are an ancient and barely understood technology for the Space Marine chapters that make use of them, revered as their art of construction has been all but lost. Just like everything else, their occupants are often veterans centuries old by that point, honoured ancients of the chapter to which they belong, and often treated as learned advisors as much as battle brothers. Their suits are outfitted with a range of weapons way too heavy for a normal Marine to carry, often chosen based on the occupier's preferences in life, from close combat weapons like chain fists and power claws to an array of fire support options. These dreadnought armors are a marvel of lost technology, ridiculously durable and endlessly repaired by a chapter's tech Marines. Their hulls are all but irreplaceable.
Interesting. He has like this gator thing either over his helmet or is his helmet. That's interesting.
And endlessly repaired by a chapter's tech Marines. Their hulls are all but irreplaceable and carefully guarded by the chapter. If the sarcophagus is breached and the occupier lost, the battle brothers will fight till the last to retrieve the shell, and the suit will be prepared for the next worthy candidate, however long it takes for one to turn up. As it is, by the 41st millennium, some dreadnought suits have been in continuous use by a chapter for over 10,000 years, filled with a roll call of ancient wounded heroes. Of course, over the 10,000 years of development, there have been many different variants of dreadnought armor. Though,
of course, just like everything else,
Terminator armor, they don't really follow a simple pattern of improvement. Many of those designs just existed concurrently with each other. For much of the Imperium's existence, the most common form of dreadnought armor has been the Mark IV and Mark V Castra Ferrum suit, standing just under 4 meters tall and weighing around 12 tons. The suits are incredibly heavily armored, particularly towards the front, and are powered by versatile thermic reactors. In front of this sits prominent sarcophagus sections to house the occupant. Both of these marks have been in common use since the Great Crusade, though the Mark IV suits tended to be more common within the legions that sided with Horus during the heresy, which has given them something of an unfavourable reputation amongst loyalist chapters ever since. Both can be outfitted with a bewildering...
You know, they could be seen as the heretical versions and obviously linked to the disloyal Space Marine chapters.
Array of armaments, and many chapters have evolved their own unique versions. A standard dreadnought loadout tends to mirror that of a Space Marine officer, a close combat weapon, often a power fist or a chain fist, and a ranged weapon system ranging from twin-linked heavy bolters through to assault cannon or multi-melters through to more exotic weaponry like a plasma cannon. But that's just the standard ones. Mortis dreadnoughts are fire support variants armed with multiple of the same weapon, often...
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it would just be, they would be outfitted essentially for whatever role they would want to play in the war. Do they want to be, again, more of a frontline, you know, line breaker, defense breaker kind of system? Or are they going to be a frontline support unit? Are they going to be an artillery unit? Are they going to be an anti-vehicle unit, anti-air unit potentially? You know, recon. Although I would think these might not necessarily work very well for recon, but it could also be a situation where they might have instrumentation where they don't need to get so close and they can take, you know, recordings and readings from further away with various instruments that are built into the dreadnoughts suits. So, yeah, I feel like it would just be kind of pretty much. They would be outfitted just like any Astartes would be outfitted for just whatever their specific role is meant to be at the time. And I would assume that these things might be... you would think that they would want to make these modular kind of as the Space Marine suits were later on, so that they could fulfill different roles at different times, or if whoever's piloting them, you know, changes how they want to battle. You know, I mean, someone's been around for 10,000 years, you know, just using a chain fist and, you know, some heavy bolters or whatever might get kind of boring after a while, and you might want to change it up and use something different, you know, I don't know.
2 twin-linked autocannons to serve as a form.
But then again, like you said, this technology is also kind of lost technology, and they don't necessarily know how to create or even possibly maintain it very well, so who knows, it just might not be the case.
With multiple of the same weapon, often 2 twin-linked autocannons to serve as a form of anti-air platform, and the Hellfire Dreadnought is another fire support option armed with twin las cannon and a missile launcher. On the flip side, assault dreadnoughts are relatively common, armed with twin close combat weapons, but more specialized are the ironclad and siege dreadnought patterns. Ironclad dreadnoughts are equipped with additional ablative armor and close assault weapons like hurricane bolters and assault launchers.
Hurricane bolter? What the fuck is that?
Are equipped with siege drills to bore their way through enemy fortifications, and a flamestorm cannon to clear the occupants afterwards.
Interesting.
If the occupant was formerly a chaplain or a librarian, their dreadnought suit might reflect that, armed with a Crozius Arcanum or force weapons, and individual chapters have customized suits further from the Death Company and...
Interesting, the idea of a librarian being interred in one of those. I don't know, you would think it'd be more, I mean... The idea of the librarian to me is, I guess they would still need to be a warrior and fight just like anyone else would be. But, you know, it's just, to me, the idea is they're more there for like record keeping and historical purposes, you know, to just record the battles and the actions of their chapter, etc., etc. But I guess, you know, if they're renowned enough and they did their job well enough, having them put in a dreadnought so they can continue doing that, I guess it would make sense. But you would, you know, just my thinking would be that they would want to reserve those more for like actual great warriors so that they can continue fighting. But, you know, to each his own, I guess.
And individual chapters have customized suits.
Who's this brother Kaplan Gnarl, the veteran of the Red Scorpions, the survivor of both the chapter's deployment to Vracus? At Vrax, the dreadnought was damaged during the attack, but was later recovered for repairs. Okay.
Further, from the Death Company and Furioso close combat dreadnoughts of the Blood Angels to the Doomglaive dreadnoughts of the Grey Knights, whose armor bears the same hexagrammic wards as the rest of the...
Interesting. So Grey Knights even have those dreadnoughts. Man, give me some of these in Chaos Gate. Let me field some of these dreadnoughts, bruh.
Chapter. But though these Castroferum suits are the most common sort, more advanced variants do or did exist. The common sort. More advanced
Texas in my way. Angels of Absolution, Vindicator, reinforced armor deployed to support the close quarters fighting. And the Citadel's out of Ward Citadel. Is this for like, was this during the Siege of Terra? Angels of Absolution, Mortis Pattern, Dreadnought armed with 2 twin last cannons, or Brother Emil formed part of Maester your first strike force. Maester Yafiris. How the fuck do you pronounce that name? Yafiris. Strikes force during the hunt for Arcos the Faithless.
Variants do or did exist. The Contemptor pattern dreadnought was a development of the Great Crusade. As the forces of the Imperium pushed out from Terra, they recovered all manner of lost technologies, and these were incorporated into the Imperium's armies. Sharing many systems with the contemporaneous Mark IV Maximus power armor or Tartaros Terminator armor, Contemptor dreadnoughts were much larger, faster and more durable than the previous marks, and became increasingly common amongst the Space Marine legions of the latter end of the Great Crusade. As well as more advanced armor weaves, the suits also incorporated atomantic field generators to better protect their occupants, and were powered by more complex atomantic power cores, both of which were technologies developed by the Mechanicum for use in Legio Cybernetica automata. Standard armament was similar to the Castroferums, a close combat weapon and a ranged weapon, though Mortis variants did exist. More common, though, was the Deredeo pattern dreadnought, a development of...
that thing is crazy looking. Some big-ass cannons and missile launchers and whatnot. That's like a heavy artillery one.
The Contemptor pattern that functioned as a heavy fire support platform, armed with colossal long-ranged weapon systems and advanced targeting arrays. And then, towards the end of the Great Crusade, the legions were also bolstered by the Leviathan siege dreadnought.
God damn. Big ass fucking like these look like you know, tank guns or whatever that they've mounted, tank cannons, like 155 millimeter or 150 millimeter, like, you know, like howitzer guns or whatever. They got 4 of them, a little quad action going on. That's crazy. And like, I don't know, these like little plasma rails or something, or rail guns or something like that.
Dreadnought, a Great Crusade. The legions were also bolstered by the Leviathan siege dreadnought, a colossal pattern developed initially in secret by the tech clans of Terra, away from the pervasive oversight of the Mechanicum, and its systems incorporated...
So there were the tech clans of Terra. So there were even other like clans doing research and development of weapons and things that were outside of the Mechanicum. That's interesting. I would kind of like to learn more about them. Do you guys have any content creators out there that have made any videos about some of these tech clans and their creations? Let me know. You know, post some links down in the comments and let me know. I wouldn't mind taking a look at some of that.
Away from the pervasive oversight of the Mechanicum, and its systems incorporated lost technologies held separate from Mars for hundreds of years. Designed originally to destroy buildings,
that is crazy looking.
It was significantly larger even than Contemptor dreadnoughts, and equipped with an oversized power core to allow the use of even bigger weaponry, though because of this, its systems were known to put significantly more strain on its occupants.
I bet.
All of these more advanced Crusade variants kind of fell out of use in the post-heresy years, their systems being significantly more difficult to maintain, though some dreadnoughts of these marks still survive into the 41st millennium, as well as some even older variants. Records exist of a Lucifer pattern dreadnought, noted as being a particularly early and unhallowed variant with more dispersed armor than its contemporaries, the Castroferums, and the Furibundus class still exists in some, older forces, we'll say. And here, we're going to have to pause our in-world storytelling to take a look at the models, because the history of dreadnought sculpts doesn't quite match up as neatly as we'd like to those marks.
Interesting.
Unlike with power armor, dreadnought models have been through a...
Bro, this is straight out 209 right here, man. This is straight out of RoboCop. You have 15 seconds to comply. Just straight out 209. Holy shit.
Number of changes that don't really visually match up with the laws, so let's briefly go through them. The first dreadnoughts released were these in 1987, the infamous Ball.
Damn, 87, bro.
Available with short or
1987. I was 5 years old when this shit came out. That seems like a lifetime ago, brother. Holy.
These in 1987, the infamous Ball Dreadnought, available with short or long legs,
Ball
a
Dreadnought.
thin or a wide body. They were nicknamed Chuck, Eddie, and Fury, short for the three classes, the Contemptor, the Deredeo, and the Furibundus, each of which had just a different weapon loadout. There was also a Chaos Dreadnought in the same ball style with various mutations added on. So that was the original Dreadnought design as seen in Rogue Trader, but these designs were modified pretty quickly. By the release of Space Marine, Imperial Dreadnoughts now look like this, with a more humanoid shape, and the Chaos Dreadnoughts like this, the same style that was used in the Space Crusade board game.
That's straight up Ed 209, bro.
Then, just a couple of years later in the early 90s, with the release of 2nd edition, the design changed again to the familiar box dreadnought shape, with Chaos receiving its own variant a few years.
Those look dope. Those look dope. I kind of like how this one looks. Like this one is like really bright and shiny, but I kind of like the like darker glossiness of the paint job on this one. But they're both sick.
Years later, this style of dreadnought was maintained as just what dreadnoughts look like until the early 2000s and the Horus Heresy card game. The Horus Heresy card game was the first time the Heresy...
They got a Horus Heresy card game, bro? Damn, they even went into a card game with... I mean, I guess card games are pretty popular back then, you know, with Magic and a lot of other ones. I think, didn't even Pokemon have a card game and some other anime and stuff like that? So, I mean, yeah, interesting.
Heresy was really expanded beyond a few lines of text and a short story, and it required the creation of loads of art, which
I wonder how much, like, first of all, is this card game even still like active? Are they still like making more cards and decks and stuff like that for this game, or has that been shut down? First off. Secondly, I wonder how much like these, like for collectors and stuff like that, like how much some of these cards are worth and how rare some of these cards are, you know?
And a short story, and it required the creation of loads of art, which was later released as these Visions of Heresy books. And this art was the first time Games Workshop did something that is quite familiar today. They decided that the old model designs were in fact old designs in world as well. Those older games were mined to make the Horus Heresy look old too, and this design was then reclassified as what the Contemptor or Heresy-era Dreadnought was. After all, the original Space Marine game was set in the Horus Heresy. When the 28mm Horus Heresy Age of Darkness tabletop game came out in 2012, this ramped up, and Forge World folded even more of those old designs into the setting officially. Contemptor Dreadnoughts were released that looked like that epic dread, and the Deredeo was even reclassified as a kind of mix between...
Like, so that does look pretty fucking sick, dude. I mean, it looks like it's a giant, like, tank machine gun cannon with these missile launchers. Like, that looks very intimidating. I do like this design though. This kind of Ed 209 design just looks, I was always a fan of how Ed 209 looked. I thought it was a pretty sick looking kind of mech design. So I like how these kind of look too, but I guess it's supposed to be like this looks like a rocket pod, but it has a clip in it. You know, I don't know. That's weird. It's just, but it looks pretty dope. It looks dope. But it's interesting that this is such a different design compared to what the Loyalists have, that I guess this would be made by the Dark Mechanicus or their own forces or whatever would have to forge these, because these, yeah, completely different designs.
A Contemptor and this old style Chaos Dreadnought. That process isn't complete though. We still don't officially know what the unhallowed Lucifer pattern looks like, and the Furibundus has never turned up again. But if you see these things walking around called Contemptors, or these ancient models used as Deredeos, well, yeah, that's why. Anyway, back to the lore. In the 10 millennia since the Horus Heresy, nothing really changed in the world of Dreadnought design until the late 41st millennium, when the Primaris Space Marines were revealed by Belisarius Cawl, alongside a whole suite of new equipment and vehicles. The Redemptor Dreadnought was part of this galaxy-wide upgrade.
That looks pretty tight, honestly. That's a pretty sleek design, and it looks pretty cool with the big plasma cannon there. I don't know. It looks honestly also like the front has more armored protection for the sarcophagus, and it looks like there's these frontal machine guns. So I don't know. That looks pretty dope.
A significantly larger model of battlesuit, standing around as tall as a Leviathan dreadnought and designed to hold the remains of a primaris space marine. This new frame featured all the upgrades invented by Call over his 10 millennia of research, though like that similarly sized Leviathan, it was noted as being particularly taxing for its operator, potentially burning through its pilots faster than the previous marks. And of course, as well as the by now standard close combat and heavy weapon combination, the Redemptor also came in Brutalis and Ballistus variants for assault.
I like the paint job in this one. That looks really cool. The shine and I don't know. I really like the paint job on that, and it looks like he's going up against some Tau. Them Tau about to get fucked.
But the Space Marine chapters of the Imperium were never the only people to make use of dreadnoughts. The wars of the Horus Heresy saw many of the old legions fall to chaos, and dreadnoughts remained common in the ranks of the traitors long after. Variants of the Castroferum and Contemptor designs continued to be used by heretic Astartes forces, though within the ranks of the warbands, their role as honoured advisors and ancients had largely been forgotten. Without the resort
Thousand Suns, Fairman, Furnished Dreadnought, Kadith Silent, Mark IV Dreadnought. Kadith was president of the planet of sorcerers when the Rubric Abram was enacted.
To properly maintain the chassis,
Armin, when the Rubric of Armin was enacted.
It's almost inevitable that the occupants go slowly mad. Within the traitor legions, Internment.
Dude, what is that? Is that like a set of like? This looks like a Queen of Blade, wings almost. Interesting.
In a dreadnought is seen as a horrific punishment, an eternity locked in agony within a metal prison, and many Chaos dreadnoughts are barely controllable on the battlefield, often held in chains or powered down until the start of a battle before being loosed upon the enemy. Worse, deliberately possessed dreadnoughts are relatively common, from the Castroferum-based Hell Brutes to more specific variants like the Maragal dreadnought.
That would be terrible.
And of course, even outside Astartes, the Legio and later Adeptus Custodes also make use of dreadnought chassis, the enhanced biology of the Custodes making them.
I guess that makes sense. They would want to keep a Custodes around and able to do his duty just like any other Space Marine. So I guess it would make sense that they would have dreadnoughts as well.
These also make use of dreadnought chassis, the enhanced biology of the Custodes making them prime candidates even for the more taxing chassis. Custodes dreadnoughts tend to be of the Contemptor.
That's pretty dope.
Ancient venerable designs worked by the Emperor's own artificers and incorporating advanced Auramite armor. As well as standard loadouts, the Custodes maintain their own patterns, armed similarly to their living warriors. The Achilles and Galatus dreadnoughts, armed with a massive version of the Guardian Spear and a massive version of the Sentinel Blade and Shield. And finally, the Telemon Heavy Dreadnought is possibly one of the most sophisticated of them all. Used by the Custodes during the latter Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy, the Telemon is a huge construction, standing significantly taller than even a Leviathan, and apparently with certain plates of armor worked by the Emperor's own hand, which presumably was much easier during the Great Crusade. Amongst the elite of the...
Talk about a sacred relic then. Worked by the Emperor's own hand. Let's see here. Mark IV Dreadnought of the Space Force chapter, Thor Rear, armed with the twin-linked heavy bolters and power fist arm, and still bearing the honor badges of wolf tail totems, here as a wolf guard to Kyrie Grimblood's Great Company. Mark IV Dreadnought of the Praetorius of Orpheus chapter, Numine of the 6th Company. I think that's Numine. Numine or Numine. Of the 6th Company, armed with a multi-meta and power fist arm, and bearing his personal motto, Del Sub Numine Viget.
The 41st millennium, dreadnoughts are a vital tool. Mobile support platforms mixed with honored and ancient warriors. They're a technology older than almost any other in the Imperium. A brutal reminder of the possibilities of the Dark Age of technology, refined and refined over at least 15,000 years, and much like everything in the Imperium, a dwindling and barely understood resource. But still, they plod on
That's dope.
through the battlefields of the 41st millennium, piloted by generation upon generation of warriors for whom entombment in a walking life support machine is either the greatest of honors
Or the
most
worst.
horrific of fates. Thanks for watching.
All right, and there we have it. There we have it.
And if you'd like to find out more about the equipment of the 41st millennium, well, there should be a video just coming up there on the right, and in the thing below you'll find links to support the channel, including a Patreon.
We're gonna check that video out eventually.
Discord access.
When I was looking through his videos for some of these, I saw this about Erebus, and we're definitely gonna check that one out. But so yeah, there we go. That is the evolution of Dreadnought Armor, Warhammer 40k lore by Arbiter Ian. As always, links will be down below in the info section to this video without my commentary and to Arbiter Ian's channel. Very interesting video. I think the most surprising thing to me is that the technology for the dreadnoughts is even older and had been used even before power armor and stuff like that was going on. Just the idea of dreadnoughts being used by various, you know, barbarian tribes on Terra before the Emperor had even unified Terra is pretty fascinating and interesting to me. And I just feel like it would be crazy to kind of be able to maintain and keep something like that going back then, but obviously they did. And like you said at the end, you know, I guess it's point of view on who gets put in there, but it's either one of the highest honors so you can keep serving the Emperor, or one of the worst fates, you know, because you're essentially a brain trapped inside of this, you know, vessel, and that's it, and that's what your existence is. He made it sound like they pretty much were powered down until needed to be used in various, you know, battles, and they would just be turned on and let loose then. But he also at certain points kind of made he kind of inferred that there were also some who I guess were maybe more stable in dreadnoughts, could be considered advisors for chapter leaders just because of how experienced they are, you know, et cetera, et cetera. They've been around for, you know, thousands, possibly, you know, even over 10,000 years, trapped, well, I guess trapped, but, you know, in service to the Imperium and their dreadnoughts. It's kind of also interesting to me, though, that it seems that dreadnought technology really hasn't changed very much. Only really with new dreadnoughts, you know, Belisarius Call, like you said, making a new form of dreadnought for the primaris Space Marines, for if they're injured so they can keep fighting, or I guess for them to just be in general, and they're just bigger ones. I also hadn't really thought of the idea of other chapters, specialties, whatever you want to call them, you know, having their own dreadnoughts, like the Grey Knights. You know, I wouldn't have thought they would want to use dreadnoughts, just because of how specialized they are for, you know, hunting down and fighting chaos denizens. But I guess then again, it would make sense when they're fighting some kind of crazy, you know, large demons, greater demons, whatever. Dreadnoughts would be a big help, but you would think that with their, I don't know, I guess being a psyker wouldn't restrict you from being able to, you know, be, you know, useful in a dreadnought, you know. So, but then also Custodes having their own dreadnoughts, hadn't really thought about that, and some of them even potentially being forged by the Emperor's own hand. So those would be extremely valuable relics. So, but yeah, great video, great video. Really enjoyed the video. Definitely looking forward to getting into some more. Like I said, at the end there was a link to this video on Erebus, which I definitely plan on checking out eventually, as I saw that. But I want to get into also kind of some more videos on various technologies and things that a lot of the factions use. So if you have any content creators out there that have any videos going over any of the technologies and tactics and things like that used by any of the factions. It doesn't have to just be the Imperium or the Space Marines. You know, it could be Eldar, Necrons, Tau, etc. You know, I'd be interested in just, you know, going over those videos and learning more about that. So if you would do me a favor though, if you would click the join button down below and take a look at the YouTube membership tiers and benefits that we have there, and just see if any of those fit you, and just consider if you would like to becoming a YouTube member for this channel. It would definitely help me out if you're able to and would like to. The more people that are able to support me monetarily, the more I'm able to focus on doing work on my YouTube channel and to get more videos after you guys on a regular basis. So I would greatly appreciate that. But regardless of that, I really just appreciate you guys taking the time to watch the video here to the end with me. I greatly appreciate it. It definitely helps me. It helps the channel. And if you did enjoy this video, do consider leaving a like and a sub. And yeah, I appreciate you. Appreciate your time. Hope you're having a wonderful day. And I will see you guys on the next one. Take it easy.